Leader's personal car stolen after he left it running, and now critics say you're paying the price. Your tax dollars pay for the county car that he's driving right now and has been for months. Tonight, Only News 4 investigator Lauren Traeger exposes the details on his taxpayer-funded ride.
The sun was out, there was traffic, and so honestly, I had no idea what had happened because it happened so fast.
As chief of staff for St. Louis Prosecutor Wesley Bell, Sam Alton says he didn't expect to become the victim of a crime.
Certainly, I didn't think it was going to happen at that moment.
According to a Ladue police report obtained by News 4, on Saturday, July 11th, Alton left his vehicle running in the driveway of his Ladue home. Then someone jumped in and took off.
It was in terrible shape.
The car was found abandoned 5 days later, miles away in North St. Louis County, totaled, according to Alton.
At least the back window was blown out. The inside of it was completely trashed. The undercarriage was trashed.
But while Alton says he learned a hard lesson, never to keep his car running unattended, some people say that's not the only concern. We only learned his car had been stolen after we received this anonymous letter this week. It claims Alton is, quote, fleecing the taxpayers by not replacing his personal car and solely using a county-owned car instead. That car, a red Tahoe, it used to be driven by Prosecutor Bell, who has since received a new public-owned vehicle. Alton, who had previously declined to drive a taxpayer-funded car, says he now plans to drive this one indefinitely.
It makes more sense, obviously, because I don't have a car. But the only thing I would say that's changed is that it makes more sense to me now, because now, after having been on the job since January of 2019, I realize how much we use them.
Alton says he drives to crime scenes and community meetings. He defends the office buying and using take-home cars despite being in a pandemic.
What would you say to somebody who might say, is this really the best time?
With the way that we try and engage with the community and the way that we try and are out there as much as we can be, I understand the sentiment, but at the same time, you know, I would say that's kind of the nature of our job and what we do. And, you know, that's what we're using them for.
I think taxpayers should be very concerned about how their money is being spent.
But Patrick Ishmael of the Show Me Institute says Alton's use of the car may not be acceptable.
Like a police officer who may go to and from the job in a police car, that may be completely understandable as a use of public property. But when you're talking about someone who is, you know, a chief of staff or an elected official, I think there is a certain expectation that folks are going to pay their own way as professionals.
He says because Alton's paid a salary of $130,000, he should have to pay for his own ride.
He has no excuse not to be replacing the vehicle that he lost with another vehicle that he purchases on his own.
Allowed to drive it anywhere, Alton acknowledges the car is a perk, but one he says that is allowed.
If a certain number of vehicles are allotted to our office, that's how we're going to use them.
And with car thefts on the rise, he says his focus, catching the criminals.
This is something that not only myself personally, but the office takes very seriously. And as the officers work their case, I'm going to work with them and hope that they find the person who did it.
According to budget documents, the prosecutor's office spent about $85,000 for 2 new SUVs, but that had been previously budgeted, the prosecutor's office says, as part of regular fleet management and had nothing to do with any type of pandemic funding. We checked. The previous first assistant under the former prosecutor, Bob McCullough, also had a take-home car, but there was no official role as chief of staff at that time. Of course, prosecutors' vehicles are just a handful of the more than 600 owned by the county for things like Parks and Recreation, the Health Department, and the Transportation Department. For News 4 Investigates, I'm Lauren Traeger.